One man is growing old and one man is being told that his land is not his own now. He has no place called home. He must learn to be and grow and find time to feed his soul. When he learns to be alone, he will find that he is whole. Gonna break free tonight. Gonna take these chains, gonna make it through the night. Welcome back, everyone. My name is Winifred Adams, and I am the show host for Making Life Brighter here on YouTube and on Voice America's Variety channel for Making Life Brighter. I have recently shared with you a never-before-seen outtake, actually the very first interview I ever did with Commander-in-Chief, Russell-J. Gould. And in that, I was giving you closure about the timing, but also his extensive closure, which means information, or actually his sharing about his system and what he had done in the world, why he had done it, how he had done it. It is, and most importantly, why? Because everyone's so caught up in the movement today of Trump versus Biden and the red versus the blue and what's going on. But it comes down to shipping wars, shipping lanes, and gold. It comes down to the movement of different cargo. And if you don't understand what that means, he gives great closure in the last interview. These were the very first attempts I made at interviewing this incredible individual. And this man who has single-handedly changed the world for you, if you were to wake up, research it, and figure that out. He's given you the tools. He's given you everything technically that you would need. But people are very, very vested in a fraudulent system that continues to this day. And in operating in the belief of that fraudulent system, we might say it's the easier road to take, because that easier road doesn't have you necessarily needing to do all the steps and the mechanics that it does if you actually become a live life claimant and a postmaster. I am not here to sell postmasterships to you. I'm here to give you closure about the research I've done since 2017, technically, when this began for me. And I had a front row seat to that in the beginning, and I had no idea what that was. I struggled for about a year to figure out what that was. And I'm grateful for this journey, actually, because seeing this again and seeing this closure that I'm going to share with you is profound. It's incredibly profound. What I'm going to share today is a secondary outtake to the conversation that we first had. And each time we go into this, it's just so much more in depth. So without further ado, again, you're going to see Sergeant Horton in here. You're going to see Commander Gould. And hopefully it's becoming clear to people the real chain of command that's gone on and how dirty it is that the rest of the world is not sharing that with you, at least to give you closure and let you know that's happened. So take a listen to this second outtake, and then I have even more. Stay tuned. You're listening to Making Life Brighter Radio, and this is our special supplement to our radio show with Commander-in-Chief Russell J. Gould, and we have Robert Horton as well, and you can also see the outtake supplement with Robert as he explains his time with Russell and all that he knows about this quantum system as Russell has created and is the founder of this global corporation that we understand. So welcome back, gentlemen. Thank you very much for taking time and being with us. Russell, I'm going to continue to address you as Russell, though we know you're commander-in-chief of your corporation and quantum now time world. Can I say that?
Now space, time is no longer. So it's just, we're just in a space. Comprehension of where you are in that space is what it's all about.
It's understanding the present, literally where you are.
Yeah, comprehension. Yeah, the word that you want to use there is comprehension. We comprehend coming from knowledge, basing it on closure, bringing it through memory and knowledge to create a volition of performance. The preposition set fact is the prepositional phrase. The facts don't change, so all we can look at is the condition of mind, why this was set up. And it's the thinking that takes place within the construct. And when you have positive thinking, you create positive performances. And so what I have set up and tendered to the world is a chance to self-govern yourself, but there's a lot of accountability that takes place within the mechanics of that. So you have to be righteous with yourself and righteous with others to use my system.
Well, isn't that what we're hoping for?
Everyone has the choice of the autonomy to be autonomous and self-govern themselves if they know how to navigate their contracts in a construct that is others can join with, commune with.
And hopefully is for the fellow man and has the heart of one in it instead of me and I and I and I.
Oh, we are one.
How does I work in your grammar syntax?
Well, I can be used as an article. I can be used as a fact. So I can say, for I am, of I am, and now here I will use am as a verb, am with I am, by I am. But I could say, for the I, of the I, is with the I, by the I. I've used I in 4 different contexts. The first context being the cause, the first prepositional phrase, for the I. The second prepositional phrase is the consequence, and the third prepositional phrase is the possession, and the last prepositional phrase with the I is the authority.
And so when you take this and put it all together, you're moving into an entirely new way of speaking. And when you speak and you say your name as you have said it with the colons and the hyphens and all that, do you expect the world to do that? Do you expect the world would speak in that manner?
Well, for oral conversation, 2 plus 2 doesn't equal 4 because TO plus TO doesn't equal FOR. TWO plus TOO doesn't equal FORE. Point being, as it is written on contract, now at that point, the world has to give closure to who they are. If they don't use punctuation, then they become adjective pronouns. Now I can spin that adjective in any subjective translation that I choose to. So if someone, Winifred, comes to me and says, hey, my name is John Doe. Oh, great, John Doe. I'm going to place a value on John and I'm going to claim it as a car. No, I'm going to change my mind a second later. I'm going to claim it as a fence. And so I'm going to create subjective closure in an adjective opinion scenario so that I don't want to, and all I'm going to prove to myself is I don't want to enter into contract with this person because they can't identify themselves as a fact. So if they're going to be not going to be a fact and don't want to use punctuation, I am way cool with that because then they become non-facts. Non-facts, non-factors. So if they want to become non-factors in the now space, hey, I'm down with that.
Then there's no argument. There's
nobody there to argue with.
Right. I love that. You have such a jolly manner about you when you talk about these things. You love what you do.
I live it. Yeah,
You
I truly
are.
live the performances. I've seen, when you have tested yourself and proven to yourself, because yourself is the first one that you can fool. So once you prove to yourself that techniques work, and then you humble yourself, because to put yourself on trial where no man can judge you, where you can judge yourself, at that point there's only two choices, good and bad. And so you have to identify that there's no gray lines. There's no 50 shades of gray here. There's black and there's white. There's light and there's darkness. So how does the darkness become overrun? Turn on the light.
Yeah. Shine the light.
Shine the light.
Hold the space. Can we say it that way? You did that when you were in prison, right? They locked you up in a cage and tried to squeeze out of you something that you weren't.
Correct. They tried to say that I was someone, and nobody can tell you who you are. That's the beauty of this world. You know, we come into this world and we get docked in through our birth certificates being an adjective pronoun. The banker doctor autographs the certified seal for the bill of the lading, and then that gets transported by your parents, who both concur, and then they all tell you who you are. And that's not what this is about. This is about finding ourselves, or finding yourself, or whoever's listening to this. It's not up to me to judge them. They're the judge of themselves. But if they come into my now space and they don't use correctness, well, then at that point, we may have to move them out of now space and into a timeout situation. You know, most people aren't smart enough to go to war because they don't know how to communicate, and they don't know how to don't know what authorizes the war machine. Fortunately for me, I run the whole planet Earth's war machine, so I get it at levels. And that's, let me clarify, on my last closure with you, on our last conversation, one of the things that was talking about was Mr. Trump. Well, Mr. Trump deals with the knowledge that he's given, right? So he's never actually factually seen a commander-in-chief with skill sets like mine. And so the world buys into that because it's what he knows, it's what he's been taught by those who are handling him. So you have to comprehend that. So from my perspective, when I say that he looks like everybody looks like a tactical nightmare to me. So it's not just Mr. Trump, it's everybody, because no one can find themselves. And then when they do find themselves and use quantum grammar, they say, oh, we've done this and we can go out, and they do all this stuff. I'm like, yeah, you're using my system again. Have you paid the fee for freight for that? It's cool if you use my system, but use it. There's guidelines, there's corporate structure that was set up by David Winkle and Miller and myself. And that corporate structure will be honored by all the governments of the world, because we were the founders of this. There's a lot of people coming on after the fact claiming that they're judge this and judge that. It's like, okay.
Judge of who? Judge of what?
Yeah,
Coming from what jurisdiction?
That's exactly right. Well, I'm not going to give away those secrets, but I'm here to tell you that when I tell you I'm Chief Judge of the United States Supreme Court, you can count on it, right? The U.S. Marshals have sat down with me and said, hey, Russell, we watched the videos of you. That's definitely you on the videos. Nobody could do it. So I figured out classified technologies and techniques to the judicial systems of the world. And within that recovery and closure and performances that I went and did stemming from 1996, and I shut down the world judicial system in 2004. So when I shut that down in 2004, there was a lot of firsthand performances by me where judges had to give up secrets inadvertently to me because I pushed the performance and complied with my contracts. And that's, compliance of your contract is the most valuable performance that you have.
Correct. It's like self-regulation and 100% responsibility. We all took 100% responsibility in true open-hearted conduct. I think we might get there.
Yes, the preposition set facts, the prepositional phrases, preposition the performance or the contract duties or the compliance or the failure for the completion of the performance.
Mhm.
And so then you have to look at the verb of thinking. Now, are there laws of the nature that were applied, which means are there things that were outside of someone's control to complete the contract, such as an earthquake or a fire or something like that? Well, then you have to look at the condition of thinking of that performer. Was that performer fulfilling the duties at the time when all these circumstances out of his control were created? If so, then we know that his volition was to complete the task. If he was not creating the performance based upon his closure that he entered into contract with, now at that point, then you can look, hey, what? Then we can look at for the why, for the how, for the is. Why are all these mechanical things happening on the verb of thinking? What was creating the change that created the contract breach?
You're going back to the actual intention behind the entire action.
Not intention, because in is a preposition, but when we use it as a prefix to the words, means no. So you're saying no tension. The correct word is volition.
I'm learning.
I learned every day. That's the wonderful thing about this journey that I've been on. I get to learn so much. Every day I learn something new, and I find out how much I didn't know. So I'm a continual student of this life, and I just love it. I'm happy about life.
Well, let's go back to when you said you shut down the judicial system.
Yes.
That speaks to consequences. Consequences of not working within the parameters of this now time system. So let's talk about consequences. What did you do, and what did that do for everyone and everything?
Well, at the time, I was involved in a very physical court battle where people were trying to tell me who I am. And nobody can tell you who you are. You have to identify. You have to move the performance forward. That was coming out of Wisconsin, here in the States. And I ended up figuring out and reading all the rules to the United States Supreme Court. And because I can syntax it, I can see all the missing holes in it. And I found a way to backdoor and actually physically order the court open. Because I'm treasurer of the country and postmaster general of the country, because the United States ceased to exist in 1999 and the federal government left the District of Columbia, they left their post, so to speak, right? In the Florida Chads, the 2000 election, they vacated out and I moved on in, right? And I was grandfathered in under the, unfortunately, time, even though time is no more, but under the.
That's documented in Congress.
Yeah. I was first in line, first in the space, so to speak. And so the Department of Defense, because I had been through the physicality in that specific stay in Wisconsin was pretty tough. And when I walked back into the Pentagon, everybody jumped to attention. Dan Hutt, and I got all these guys standing at full-fledged attention going, this man walks to 40-inch strides. They're like, dude, there's no words that can explain you. You're a bad man. I'm like, oh, no, I'm just honoring my contract here. Hey, I was explaining to the Department of Defense that I needed to go to the Supreme Court. I figured out a way to order the Supreme Court open. And since I'm treasurer of the country, I was going to file my filing fee with the compliance of the laws of the bailments for the chancery on that, so I can move into the equity on the equity side and put myself on trial, and then put them on trial to file a gold coin. When I showed up, I filed my Department of Defense opened the doors for me. I met with the International Trade Commission, United States International Trade Commission, because I was bringing in foreign currency into the District of Columbia as a foreign country. So from foreign to foreign to foreign, I knew the diplomacy on how to move my commerce. So I moved it through specific, I don't want to give those classified things away right now, but I moved my diplomacy through diplomatic channels, and then ordered the Supreme Court open, and they took the filing fees, which means they took the consideration. Mm-hmm. They filed my paperwork, and I had technologies built within that paperwork that had a trigger mechanisms built up within it. That's the best I can say for the audience. Within that, I pierced the corporate veil and showed up to 0900. Now it's on War Castle, so you can watch it, but 0900, I ordered the court open on October 1st, 2004. Capitol Hill Police and U.S. Secret Service and U.S. Supreme Court Police ran down and stood one step up from me And because I had got a lot of secrets out of the judicial system, I had already explained vectors in 3 space, vectors in 4 space, changing conditions of state under Karsten's coordinates is for grafting to find yourself under XYZ components to give closure where they were and where they weren't, right? So they weren't on my plane. So point being is, as soon as I called all 9 judges to court, I called them 3 times under the 3 strike rule.
Mhm.
Now at 09:15, a class of children tried to go and make it into the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court building was closed, right? Because I had not opened up. Now October, the first Monday of October is the fiscal new year of the government, and I am always doing something on October 1st, right? I'm conducting some kind of opening or some kind of log or some kind of journal, because I've been the treasurer, postmaster general of this country since 1999 or since 2000. And so because of that, the John Cornwall, and I can use his name, he was a U.S. Supreme Court police. He jumped on my plane. He was screaming at me, "What's your name? What's your social security number?" for about 20 minutes. And they get tired of screaming. And they had their microphones pointed down at me, and they were one stare up. And we were holding the flag and reading case numbers out and doing the mechanics of holding the trial. And then I called for the custom house brokers, because the fee had been paid for the bills of the lading for the transportation of those vessels. Custom house brokers being the guards, to join me.
Mhm.
And like clockwork, they all jumped on my plane and said, "Judge Gould, we're here." They says, "Judge Gould, look." And this was at 09:23. The doors of the Supreme Court open. What's really unique about the Supreme Court and most Supreme Courts around the world, it's like the Vatican Church. The keyholes are on the inside of the doors, not the outside, so they can lock everybody in. Right? So do you comprehend what I just said there, Winfred?
Yeah.
So when you walk up to the door, instead of coming from the outside, the keyhole, you don't lock here. You come around from the back end and you unlock it that way.
Mhm.
It says, "Judge Gould, the courthouse is open. Would you like to come in?" I said, "I no longer need the building because there's no longer any judges in it. Under the 3 strike rule, because the fee had been paid in gold for the bills of the lading, I'm now Chief Judge of the United States." And they went, "What?" I'm like, they said, "Yes." They were somber. And they said, "Yes." They then autographed my contract. We walked around to the clerk's office in the back of the U.S. Supreme Court. We filed it in. Now listen to how tricky, and how do you know when the world judicial system's lying to you? Their hands are moving and their lips are moving. They're lying to you. They tried to date my paperwork on their file stamp September 31st. I'm sorry, Winfred, there's no such thing as September 31st. I had to call them on that one. So even when you beat them, they just can't take the beat down in honor. They got to lie and cheat and try to cheat themselves, saying, oh yeah, we tricked him. I'm like, no. It's October 1st. Put the right day down here. So how do you know when they're lying to the U.S. judicial system's lying to you? Their lips are moving and their hands are moving. It's all fake. You got to comprehend. It's a total harvest. And the American people are bought into this. They hire their attorneys. They don't know how to read and write. They're dumbed down so bad that this thing is a joke. Bad news is it's not only in this country, it's a worldwide phenomenon.
Mhm. So when you did that, now one day after that, people file back in for their jobs and they go back to work doing what they do. How does that work? Then what? They're just basically playing a role.
Yeah, well, they're not creators. I'm a creator, so I had to build my world.
Mm-hmm. You built a corporate construct, which is a new platform, which is a new world of operational mode. And they're operating in the old mode, but they're still operating in the old mode, correct? You just basically validated yourself in your world of it.
Well, you've got to comprehend, this is not new. I built this in 2000 to 2003. The whole thing was built.
Right. New to the rest of the world that doesn't know this.
It's new to the civil sector, the civilians. Right. But as far as the top people of the world, I have already sat down with them. They were they're not too pleased, I promise.
When you were held captive, let's go back to that for a minute.
Yes.
You were held captive. Let's talk about
Yes.
what that was like, because, you know, we talked about, we touched on the idea that you are the seventh angel, and we touched on an idea around what Robert said in our last segment. It takes
I'm sorry.
courage, great strength to do what you did. And that is sometimes, you know, some would say that's very noble. That's like being in the military, so to speak. However, your resolve to hold your place, to hold your belief system intact and not let anyone take it from you. Let's go into that.
Well,
What drove you?
To break yourself, to be self-broke. I knew enough about life, about chain of the command. I knew enough about life, about what I learned as a child, coming up as a Christian, and about moral values and what it was to be true to yourself. And when you break yourself down, what I mean by that is when your body is going and there's nothing you can do to stop it, because you know you do not have a contract in place to generate nourishment for you. That is a real humbler.
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of the only people on the planet, well, there are thousands that I don't know about, millions, sadly, that suffer from starvation. And so they broke me down through starvation. So when you break yourself, because they didn't do it, I could have gladly taken the temptation of the food. And it would have been, well, but then I would have been in their usury. So I had to jump out of that. And they knew it. And they used the food as a weapon against me. And it was tough. And so the only thing that I could do, because it was cold, is you get in prayer, you get in Psalms, and you stay positive. And so I prayed about it, and I mean, they can go back and you know, the people at someday, they can watch the videos of me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because this is all true, right? You more and you know, sitting there naked, cold, shaken, not sleeping on their mats, sleeping right on the concrete floor. I refused to sleep on their mats. I refused to take any of their clothes. It's not that I refused, I just didn't have a contract for it. When I would sleep on their mats or when I would take their clothes, then they would take me to booking saying, oh, you're here.
So they're almost forcing you into admitting that you're part of their system and you would have nothing to do with their system whatsoever. Now, what about water?
Well, water I would salvage under the creator. I'd say, you know, Yeshua created Yahweh created this, and I did take some of their water, and that was, you know, without that I wouldn't have made it as long as I did. I couldn't get angry with people. I get frustrated because I know there's only a couple culprits, but they were like thinking I was Dave, because the guards told me that you're Dave, and then when I got done, they're like, you're not Dave, man. No way. You're something else. You are not Dave. Dave's you know, they had their own thinking, and you know, the people will find out about how Dave really was in those situations. Mm-hmm. And sadly, you know, the world will figure that out. If they keep pushing this forward and wanting to learn about me, and other people keep on pushing, they're going to pull out skeletons that they may not like.
Well, I think your resolve speaks for itself, and the fact that your dedication to I'll even call it this, your belief system and your mission. And it's, I don't like to use the word mission necessarily, but in a way, it's a word that everyone can relate to, because you held an equipoise in the middle of being beaten, of being starved, of being mentally tested against
your resolve, and
Humiliated. Yeah, humiliated. It's total humiliation. They're hauling you around the court system, and you're butt naked, and they're trying to intimidate you that way. I mean, it's just one intimidation after another. And I told myself that I would rather die than live a lie. I knew who I was. I physically watched the District of Columbia. I'm the only guy who predicted that the 2000 presidential election, the night of, they would not announce a president. I didn't know how. But when I seen them go, problem in Florida, we can't announce it, I said, pull out your stopwatch and start counting it. Because it's like clockwork. It's a banking machine. And I knew I had taken over.
how did you take over the banking system, and what did you do with it specifically?
Well, I control the bill of lading for shipping, and the post office authorizes all banks in every country.
So you control that entire system. Now, do they have to actually pay into your system to authorize themselves on the quantum platform, or do they have to take, so to speak, license with your system?
They would have to be first qualified through knowledge by me specifically, and only I can authorize that. At that point, then they could be delegated authorizations for performances for the people.
And you would determine who does that and who doesn't.
Based upon, are they actually caring for the people? Are they actually righteous? Will the people actually get to use this? If not, don't contact me.
How will you know that? And given how fraudulent and how far-reaching the fraudulent banking system is today, how do you determine who would be worthy of that or not?
Well, there are people that are good people that are built within the system that are there trying and trying and trying with no authorization. And they have qualified mechanical administration skill sets that most of the people in the civilian sector do not possess. And so because of that, you have to look at the overall education as a function that you can work with, or that I can work with, right? So there may be people that are super qualified, smarter than myself, in all kinds of academic backgrounds in specific sectors and specific fields. However, if they haven't paid the fee for freight for usury with me, it's nonsense.
It's not just.
And I would not put them. I built something that everybody can use, but there's qualifications based upon honesty and performance. That's actually built into my banking construct. I have a 3-strike construct built into there. If you're a bad person more than 3 times, you're not going to like my banking system because you're going to get froze out. Right? And so I have built all of those mechanics within my constructs.
And your banking system is based upon gold that you yourself are mining.
It's based on mechanical functions, but the laws of physics don't apply.
Is that going back to the periodic table?
Goes back a lot of places.
The banking system that you have is for what purpose, technically?
It's to, first of all, allow autonomy for those who want to, governments that want to come in and be autonomous, have some self-governance. It also allows fair trade, one country to another, backed upon assets, so it's no derivatives, no junk bonds, all of that nonsense is thrown out. There's a global stock market based off of consistency. There's mechanical applications that I can sit down and show the people the math formulas on the price of commodities and how it actually works. I'm trained in all, I'm very trained in all that.
And so what do you think about a tax system, a taxation system?
There will be no taxes. It'll be based upon consumption, based upon a one-time flat tax at 10%. The IRS was kicked out of the United States in 1999. So there will be no, people will be allowed to build their equity and not be taxed on it. However, when they go out to purchase, there will be a consumption tax, and that will pay for everything. And it's built into my construct.
And so when you look at this, are other people willing to get on board with you? Are they willing to play in this system?
They're willing to plagiarize it, that's for sure.
But I mean other countries. Have you spoken with other countries that say, do you know what, this is a great idea. I think we need to implement this for the greater good of the world. Or are they just so greedy and selfish they say, no, forget it. You know, you're crazy and we don't acknowledge that.
Well, when I was at the United Nations, they confessed to me that they were a war machine. Okay, so because of how I can question and position people, it's not quite what it looks like out here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the problem, right? And so there has to be a whole different construct, parallelism as a juxtaposition, where I can sit there and show how to tweak it so that the rest just goes away. And you know, the wealthy, they're more than welcome to keep their wealth, right? And if they choose to salvage it on over, it can come through my clearinghouses. I have mechanical clearinghouses built up for equity. But as far as pie in the sky numbers that don't exist, that Fleming or some of these other characters create on paper, and zeros go on forever. Like I told some of these guys, and I know the guys who write some of these programs, and I'm like, can you go in the lab and, because one guy's got platinum backing it all. I'm like, oh, good. Ammonium chloroplatinate. Bam, let's go, man. You ready to roll? Show me, manufacture it for me. What? Huh? What? Oh, you mean you don't possess knowledge and yet you're claiming all this platinum? Really? Really? You want to come and hang out with the man? Oh, no. Can't come near you.
Man in control of the elements.
Yeah, you go ahead and step on in the lab with me. Find out.
What elements do you want to put as backing to this?
Well, it just depends on what. You could use a lot of different elements. You can do a lot of different minerals, materials. It doesn't necessarily have to be a PGM, a platinum group base metal. It can be, you name it. There's a lot of commodities out there. I don't want to get too crazy over the air, but there's a lot.
Let's look at it this way, okay? So I'm going to pose kind of a funny question to you. There's a few things in the world that can't be alchemized. Gold being one of them. Coral being another one. Mother of pearl being another one. Turquoise being another one. What if, the Indians valued turquoise? It was one of the most valuable things because it would hold energy. So then are you looking for things that can be alchemized or not alchemized? Is it something that's, you're talking about quantum now, and so that can't be distilled down. It is what it is.
No, it depends on the user and those customers that they have. So I can set up separate platforms that are user-friendly only to that material matter.
What they value.
What they value, correct.
How does that become standardized then, and people can trade on an equal value system?
It can be, but right now it's postmaster to postmaster, bank banker to bank banker, because the education is not in place on a larger scope.
Interesting. Wow.
And unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there that are claiming a lot of the quantum grammar, and they're doing this and that, and they're missing quite a bit. Very new, claiming to be here for 20 years, claiming all kinds of nonsense. It's like, what? No. Wow.
When we last spoke, we left off on the hinge drop of the CDC, vaccinations, and the health organization. Let's jump right into that because this audience is hungry for that. And I actually spoke with a client last night, and she was all about that. And she happens to be very big into the vaccination world and what's going on and the things that they're doing. So let's just jump in and find out what it is you've done for that.
Okay.
How do you...
What we did is in 2004, I hired my own surgeon-general at the time we were the unity-states of our world corporation. He went in and syntaxed the CDC charter as well as the World Bank charter and found it to be 100% fraud. In fact, there weren't any words on the page by the time he got done with it. He was very efficient in syntaxing. So all the guidelines that are used for vaccination are fake, right? All the rules that set up corporation for pharmaceuticals is fake, right?
Well, how
Because
can they get away with all the laws they're creating around something that's fake? So none of the laws, you could go into a courtroom under your system right now and they don't even apply.
well, the court systems are closed. Why would you go? Keep your money
Touche.
in your pocket.
Touche.
Put your money in your pocket. Don't pay,
Okay,
you don't need to pay a filing fee. Yeah, it's you lose there. Don't go there.
to the parents that are really up against, they're being
Okay,
thrown in jail for not
well,
vaccinating their child.
well,
Hello.
here's the problem. They're in usury with the child and the state through the doctor birth certificate. They must have a claim of the life on the child, and they themselves have claim of the life, and that's how they go back and reissue. Clears that problem all right off the scale.
How does everybody get a claim to life through you then? Because you'll have a million parents coming your direction in short order.
Contact my team on that. We already kind of got that set up through Robert, and
Okay.
Robert, are we still gonna?
I'll post contact through my website. People can go
Yeah,
there.
yeah, and I've got other people. Yeah, and if see the first time that I saw the claim of the life really work in a child situation was in New Jersey. The lady was not competent enough in quantum grammar, but the children had claims of the life. She was a criminal. She was a blue collar, white collar criminal, and she was stealing money. And the FBI came in and raided her. And during the raid, they were going to move the children to what do they call that? Social services.
Mm-hmm.
And because they had claims of the life, they got to go with the aunt who also had a claim of the life. The FBI moved the children not to social services, and the prosecutor was upset, but he said they had claims of the life. They had to go that way. So they knew they didn't trespass in our jurisdiction. So it was really interesting. And this was in 2004. I saw that in New Jersey. 2004, January 2005. Yeah.
If a parent,
the fiction knows about it for quite a while.
now, if a parent today is up against the battle of vaccination and they don't want vaccinations for their children at the low rate they're being given by law, now in California especially.
Whose law?
Yeah.
Okay,
law.
So what I do is I put a contract together. They have to pay me for all this because it takes so much time. And how I go about that, I do this for kids in school lockdowns, right? When they lock down the school, parents come to me. And so what we do, I'll just explain this without giving too many technical disclosures. So we take their claims of the life. We go to the Pentagon. We register the claim of the life with the Secretary of the Navy's office because of the martial law as a vessel contract. The vessel contract then leaves the District of Columbia as a foreign country through the post office and gets delivered to the Board of Governors, or not the Board of Governors, but the superintendent of schools for that school district. Superintendent of school, then we run him on a timeline and we file that directly with the Secretary of State and the National Guard for that specific state. We take that claim of the life that's on file with the Secretary of State, the Navy, the post office, the superintendent of school, and we file that with the principal. The counselors call me in every single time and say, Russell, what's going on here? And I sit down with the principal and the counselors and the students' parents. And we say, this is a foreign vessel. This is not a schooling education. This is a custom house for clearinghouse mechanics. And I look at the principal and go, is this not correct? Yeah. Okay. Since this is not about education, but this is about finance and being paid, that's why if you're more than 5 minutes late to class, guess what? You're tardy. Go off the rolls. Right? And it's a banking. There's banking mechanics that get applied. The principal has to ledger that out. So when they lock down the schools, what we do is we have our C passes, and then the children, and we don't use Social Security numbers to get them into public schools either, because Social Security was thrown out of the United States in 1999 too. That's all fake. So the kid has no Social Security number. He's got a claim of the life, and he's got a C pass. And then we issue that with the sheriff's department or the local police department, whatever municipality is running the security on the school. And then when they do school lockdowns, fire alarms or somebody's shooter or something, my guys hold up carry their C pass on them, and they walk them right out the doors. And all the kids are running this way, and the police are moving my clients that way. Right. and they get to go home. They don't have to go through all the nonsense. So we've done it
People
over and over and over and over again since 2004. So a lot of years, a lot of education's been done on that part.
You're making money off of this. You're making money off of it. How do you respond to that?
When you go to a university and you sign up for classes, do you have to pay first, or do you get to go in the classes without paying?
Mm-hmm.
Is education free? How much work are you going to put into it?
Mm-hmm.
What they're paying for mainly is I value my time.
Mm-hmm.
I value it. I don't care what anybody else says about it. I value my time. I put my energy and love into whatever I do. I know what I know, and I know how to bring a solution to the situation. Most people can't afford my time, and that's why I'm not really out there promoting my time.
So what would you do for the entire vaccination system? Now that this fellow found there was a blank page, essentially, now what?
Well, I would have to sit down and school them on how to navigate themselves around that. And then they would have to pay for I work for a living, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is what I do. I work for a living, right? So if somebody's going to ask me to leave my job that I work at and I work really good at and I make good value at, then in order to persuade me to go that way, there better be consideration and gold on the table. Nothing personal. I'm not trying, but you're asking me to stop working.
But
right?
no, how would you solve the problem of that? Would you gather parents together and make claim to lives for children for vaccination?
You'd set up community leaders, right? So you have a venue in California. You set up a community leader, and then at that point, you can make sure they have the necessary contracts in their hand, and then they can navigate. It'll be self-navigationable at that point. They can navigate themselves. They won't need me so hands-on. Now, if somebody's being nasty within the construct of the system and needs discipline, then at that point you can get a hold of me, and then we'll make the necessary arrangements for the attitude adjustments.
So
yeah.
I want to jump into the idea about the divine feminine. Everyone says the divine feminine is what's coming in this world. What do you think about that?
I took out the matriarchy on planet Earth on June 6, 2006. And so the matriarchy, when it lands, will be moved out spiritually.
What does that mean to you? When you talk, are you talking about the Vatican? Or are you talking about the shift?
No, I'm just talking about what you're talking about, the feminine side of things.
And what does it mean if the matriarchy is moved out? What happens then?
That means that the matriarchy doesn't have tactical command, control, helm, space.
So it's patriarchal. Continued.
Correct. That's what's set up right now.
Mm-hmm.
It was given away.
What do you have to say about the divine feminine being an energy that's kind of sweeping in it all?
Well, it may sweep in, but it doesn't have tactical. It may sway people's thinking,
Mm-hmm.
but all it can do is seduce. We've seen this story over and over.
Interesting. So do you see a balance coming? Is there balance in a patriarchal society?
Is there balance? No, there's no balance right now. You can keep what you can hold.
Rebalance?
How can you rebalance it? There's only one that you get your grammar correct. You get your grammar correct, and you go grab the people and do the the tough love, right?
100% accountability, self-responsibility is what you're saying.
Yeah, if you make a few people that have made choices that have caused damage to planet Earth, and you
Mhm.
take those people and you allow a guy like me to turn on the cameras anywhere near them and just stay out of my way, the rest of it will be self-showing. You can count on it.
Get anybody in front of him. Get anybody in front of him and turn the cameras on, and you will get an education.
I'm feeling that.
Yeah.
I'm feeling
Yeah.
that in this already. And, you
Yeah.
know, when you look back on everything that you've created and you've done, perhaps you're not attached to it, especially since you are coming from more of a divine perspective. But when you look back on it as a human being in a body, what does it mean to you?
Benevolence, humility, meekness.
Yeah, we're here as blessings to each other. To take care of the tired, the poor, the sick, and the hungry, and not to forget the widow and the orphan. That's the foundation our nation was laid upon. So anybody that says religion and government aren't one, they got their heads in tailpipes.
Yeah. So,
Russ,
however, I knew what it took to build it, and and it wasn't just me doing. See, it just wasn't me. It was me, but it was a blessing. I was just a pass through. Funny Easter. I was just a pass through of all
you were
kinds of
sort of
concepts. Well, I put myself in locations on this planet that most people can't get into.
like
And
Vatican. Let's talk about when you went into the Vatican.
yeah,
What did you do and what
yeah.
happened there?
Well, I called there for 45 days in a row. They spoke Italian to me for 45 days. On the 45th day, I said, I'm getting on the plane. I'm mailing myself around the world. And they said, see you when you get here. I was like, oh, you dirty buggers. Knew the whole time. And I got there, and when I come out of the post office, because, I had found my posted my roads and done things before I got there, and it's all in a timely manner, And when I came out, there was an 85-year-old nun standing there at the door saying, you're Judge David Win Colin Miller, and you're Judge Russell and J. Colin Gould. She goes, I've been at the Vatican. We're very impressed with your syntaxing of the Bible. And they said, we've been studying it for the last 5 years in San Antonio, Texas. And we're like, what? She's like, no. She goes, we love your syntaxing. She goes, you guys have syntaxed all religions. I'm like, yeah. We're like, all Bibles. Or like, yeah. I said, it's all written in adverb verb, doesn't say anything. They're like, yeah, you guys are the greatest. She goes, hey, man, I want to take you. And she just took us all around where we needed to go. We met people. Ended up in the Secretary of State's office because I disqualified the bank ledgers into getting into the Vatican. And they sat me down at the Secretary of State's table with all the stamps and all the stuff. And I wrote a contract again. They had Dave leave the room. They asked Dave to leave the room. Dave left the room, and I wrote a contract basically because at that point I had spoken with many cardinals and stuff, and I had possessed. They marveled that I was pretty dialed in when I was there on the hieroglyphics and the things, and
They
it wasn't all
understood
good.
you a whole bunch of things that they didn't want you to know.
Oh, I had a lot of fun. You bet. You bet. You bet. You bet.
And so
Because
in
they sat there and listened to me. That was the part that I was marveled at. Like, these dudes are acting more and more coming to me. What? That's the part that was like, whoa. That was a real eye opener for me, is that here's these old guys. Some of them you couldn't really hardly understand their grammar, their English when they were talking to me. Be like, oh, okay. And then I would answer the question, and we'd get into more talking, dialogues. And they went a lot of different fields with me, a lot. And I can't get into some of the conversations because, they have privacy too. And so,
but they
they
recognize
should.
you as the commander in chief, and they understand what you're doing and what you've done in changing
Yeah.
their system.
Planet Earth. Yeah. What they told me is that they wrote me a letter, and the words in their letter says, I was a solitary condition of the state. They said that I possess so much knowledge in banking that they don't even know where to go with me. And then on the shipping end, on the military end, and all these things that I just was rattling on and on and on and on. And they sat me down. From there, they took me to a meeting, not the Vatican, but we went to a meeting at the Universal Postal Union, and we sat down with the 3 smartest people in the world in postal mechanics and banking, the think tank boys. And when I got done with them, they were like, you have created your own country, you have your own jurisdiction, we're going to stay out of your jurisdiction. Whoa. Yes, sir. You know,
why not join your jurisdiction? Because they don't want to play fair?
Well, my jurisdiction's wherever I'm at, so that's the best part. So they stay in future tense and past tense, and I stay in a now space. And there's a lot of people using the now space now, but because some people are doing it correct and other people are doing it falsely, and it'll just weed itself up. I've been at it, a long time, and over 23 years, and I can say that there are people come and go in the quantum grammar world. But I will say this: the people of the world are looking for something. They don't know what, but they are searching, and they're searching hard. And I'm doing more. People look at the war castles, and they can throw stones at it. They can say that this, that. All I got to say is go watch the videos.
Yeah.
Go turn them on.
People want truth.
Yeah,
and they want something that's consistently truthful.
As this interview goes out,
I want truth. Yeah. I want honesty. I'm looking too. I'm constantly searching and challenging myself to find correctness. Always, absolutely. Yeah, it's the quest. It's the quest.
As this goes out, we're hoping that the agents that actually interrogated Russ and interviewed Russ from the DoD and the intelligence community will come forward and tell their story and say, "Hey, I was there." That's
great.
Yeah.
That's what we're calling for. We're calling for the guys that were there to come forward and tell a story and say, "Yeah, man, I was there," and yeah, wow.
Well, we have more to continue with, and I want to say thank you again for coming and being with us and enlightening us that much more, quite literally, because you're touching on so many subjects and there's so many pieces and parts to what you have created and what you've done and how to understand it and go about appreciating that as it pertains to this world and moving forward. And, it is an ongoing education, and I appreciate your honesty and your candid commentary on everything. So thank you both for being here, and let this be continued because there's going to be more and more questions, and we'll move forward and hopefully making lives brighter. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you so much. And you can go to makinglifebrighter.com for more information on how to get a claim to life and all the information that we talked about in this segment. And hopefully they'll be back and we'll have more to say because this is not over yet. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, go Jolly, everybody.
Not even by a long shot.
Go Jolly.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
One man is growing old and one man is being told that his land is not his own now. He has no place called home. He must learn to be and grow and find time to feed his soul.